Mangird Xenns Up. This thing has been a long time coming and I'm probably the latest reviewer to talk about the Xenns Up, but it's here nonetheless because so many of you guys requested it. Hey friends, it's Team here. Welcome back to another video on Thieaudio. Today we have a review of the Xenns Up and a comparison to the newer Tribrids that are on the market today. The Monarch MK1, the Clairvoyance, the Monarch MK2, the Oracle Mark II. Let's get into it. Now, let's start with the sound signature. This thing has a lot of bass and some bit of warmth as well that leads into the lower mid-range. The upper mids and the treble area are surprisingly quite even and good sounding. Now, let's just talk about the elephant in the room. Let's rip the bandage here. If you're looking to buy the Xenns Up, if you saw the graph of the Xenns Up and you're looking to get this unit, you're not looking to get anything that is neutral, natural, open signature. You're not looking to get the best details, the best soundstage performance. You're looking to get a lot of bass and you're hoping to get at least good quality bass that doesn't completely destroy the rest of the frequency ranges. Now, I can tell you right now, you don't have to watch the whole entire video. The Mangird Xenns Up does bass pretty satisfyingly. Now, there is one sacrifice, and probably the biggest sacrifice here is the male vocals. Male vocals are rich, they're heavy, yes, but can be too boomy at times. And you can kind of see why, because of the amount of warmth that you get here. If you want this level of bass, then the bit of boominess in male vocals and bassy instruments, they come with the territory. Now let's explain the good parts or the fun bit that you're gonna get with those sacrifices. The bass is a lot and it has quite a richness and big feeling to them. They're really fun for EDMs, for modern pop music, for hip hop, for rap, anything at all that you want a meatier, big feeling low end. This will give it to you. Thumps, slams, sub bass, rumble, all of those are more forward on the Xenns Up than anything else in other ranges. Next, let's jump into the mid-range. The lower mids, as I said again, is quite boomy, quite warm, not very natural, but it has a lot of note weight. The upper mid-range you can describe as relaxing, well, largely natural with a little bit of drop in energy in the 5 to 6K. This affects female vocals a lot more, so female vocals don't feel as full range as they can be, while male vocals tend to not be as affected by this, especially if your male vocals have a deeper voice and tend to live in the deeper ranges. They're going to be more affected by the amount of warmth that this IEM has rather than the drop in energy in the upper ranges here. Now, one thing I should notice that with the amount of bass that you get with the Xenns Up, this little bit of drop in energy is not that audible in comparison to sets with a lot of vocal presence. And this is because the first thing you're gonna notice and the thing that's gonna distract your brain the most is gonna be the bass, because that's the most forward thing. One more thing to notice, that with that bass and upper mids relationship, you're not gonna get the most forward vocals in general or the most lively vocals period, because it's gonna sound a lot more relaxing due to, again, bass. Now let's move on to the treble area, and I quite like the treble area on the Xenns Up, but for a different reason than what you guys are thinking right now. The treble area on the Xenns Up, well, let's touch on the bad stuff first, right? Because it's always good to start with the bad stuff. It's not enough for sure, because the balance is a lot more bass heavy. It's not gonna sound the most energetic, not the brightest. You're not gonna have the best note definition and details or soundstage possible out of this. But the one good thing it does have is that it's rather even. The treble has no weird peaks or dips besides the air part, and this I like because of one particular reason. It makes the Xenns Up very easy to EQ. And if you don't EQ, this doesn't pertain to you at all. But if you do EQ and you tone down the bass, you cut the warmth on the Xenns Up, with the even and decent quality that you get in the treble, you can get it to sound pretty competitive with other $700 Tribrid sets out there. But again, if you don't EQ, the treble here is on the very tame side, and you do lose out on details because of it. Next, let's talk about technical performance. Let's bring up my detail scale and see where the Xenns Up land. The Xenns Up lands right around Starfield. No, I'm not being harsh. I'm not trying to push this IEM down. that's just how it is, because what we perceive as details and soundstage largely come from the treble area. For example, if you have a really nicely done airy region, you have a good amount of it, you're gonna get a wider sense of soundstage. If you have a nicely done 8 to 10K region, you're gonna have better note definition, which in the case of the Xenns Up, since the bass is so much and the treble comes across very tame, you lose out on a lot of that. Another bane in the overall detail performance is in the warmth that you get with this IEM. Since it's quite boomy and unnatural sounding, you lose a sense of layering there as well, since a lot of instruments sound more blended in with each other, more boomy, muddy a little bit, if you will. You don't get a good sense of clean separation, especially when it comes to bass instruments and instruments that live in the lower mid-range. Again though, if you're a Xenns Up buyer, user, or you're looking to get the Xenns Up, you already kind of expect this part of the review. Now let's move on to the comparison with the other Tribrids I mentioned in the beginning of the video. As you can see, I have the graph right here. I'll show you guys on screen right now. If you notice, the Xenns Up has the most amount of mid bass out of all the Tribrids, thus making it the most boomy, the most fun sounding in the bass area out of all the Tribrids mentioned on this graph. Now all the other Tribrids are gonna be more natural sounding, more open sounding, and has more details and soundstage than the Xenns Up. Now I'm gonna rank the Tribrids mentioned on the graph in order of cleanest sound, all right? So if you want the most open sound, pretty much the opposite of the Xenns Up, then you go with the original Monarch MK1, followed by the Monarch MK2, followed by the Clairvoyance and Oracle 1 or 2. And lastly, we have the Xenns Up, which is the most warm out of all of them. Now I'm gonna rank them by perceived details and soundstage performance. At the #1 spot, we have the Monarch MK1, followed by the Monarch MK2, Clairvoyance and Oracle MK2, same spot. Next, we have the Oracle MK1, and lastly, we have the Xenns Up. All right, that is it for the Xenns Up review. Now, what's my final verdict on the Xenns Up? I would say this is a kind of like a not so much a recommendation, mainly for one thing, and that is the price. It's $700. Now, I am late to do this review, so many good options have came out. When the Xenns Up came out, I would recommend it more than today, because today again we have the Oracle MK2, we have the Monarch MK2, which are very similar in price, and arguably if you're spending that much money anyways, you should just make the jump to a Monarch MK2, or you can step down to an Oracle MK2 and get better results than on the Xenns Up. Now, the reason it's not a absolute not recommend is because it does fit a niche, and that is bass heads. If you're into bass, if you're looking at the Xenns Up as a potential option, you don't care again about all the details and soundstage, whatever. You care about the amount of bass that you get, the amount of fun that you get, and on that merit, it's a good IEM. Not a value for money IEM, not close, but if you do EQ, the Xenns Up value for me goes up quite a bit because, again, the qualities I mentioned in the treble area. All in all, Xenns Up for bass head only. If you're looking for Tribrids, there's many other options on the market. All right, that should wrap up everything. Don't forget to subscribe if you made it this far into the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Bye.